Next week, the election could be decided by only 2 districts, Omaha, Nebraska, and upstate Maine. Let's find out how. This is my second video in my mini-series about elections and polling. Last week, we took a look at national polls. We reviewed the margin of error in the 2016 election, compared it to previous elections, and found that not only was it within a normal margin of error, but that the spread error, or error in the predicted distance between the candidates' polling numbers, was one of the smallest gaps in recent history. And by that measure, national polling has actually become more accurate over time. But if you were around in 2016 and you watched the news, you saw how heavily Hillary Clinton was favored to win, and how shocked so many Democrats were when Donald Trump became president. In this video, we will dive further into 2016 state polling predictions, their errors, and what they can teach us in 2020. Now, let's use the last 2016 polling averages from before the election and rebuild the electoral map with these averages, taking a look at where they lead us. We'll start with the battleground states in gray, all the safe Clinton states in blue, and the Trump states in red. So far, we see Clinton starts with a modest lead. First, let's add in battleground states polling 5 percentage points or higher towards one of the candidates. That brings in for Hillary Oregon at +8, Wisconsin at +6.5, Virginia at 5, and New Mexico at 5. At this point, Trump is not polling above 5% in any battleground states. Next, let's add in states polling between 5 and 3%. That adds Michigan and most of Maine to Hillary's lead, and brings in Georgia, Arizona, and Ohio for Trump. And now things get really narrow. If we bring in states polling between 3 and 1%, we add Colorado, Pennsylvania to Team Blue, North Carolina, and Iowa to Team Red. All that's left now in the battlegrounds are states polling with a less than 1% difference between Hillary and Trump. And at this point, we still don't have a winner, although the vote count leans towards Hillary. Finally, when we add in the less than 1 point spreads, we give the Democrats New Hampshire, and the Republicans get Nevada, the Maine 2nd District, and Florida. So, if we could blindly follow the 2016 polls, we get Clinton winning by a razor-thin margin of 272 electoral votes. Both sides go in confident, but this election really was a toss-up. Now let's run through how it all went down, starting with the East Coast. The first shocker was Pennsylvania. The poll average leaned towards Hillary by 1.9%, but fell to Trump by 7%. Hillary barely wins New Hampshire by less than 3,000 votes, and Trump takes every state in the Deep South, Georgia by over 5 percentage points. After the East Coast results, Hillary was already on the ropes and would need to flip nearly all remaining battleground states her way to win. Then, Michigan, picked for Hillary by 3.4%, went to Trump by only 0.3%, and it was all over before we even left the Eastern time zone. But it got even worse for Hillary. She lost Wisconsin, a state she was supposed to win by 6.5 percentage points, a complete shocker. In the West, Hillary went on to pull a minor upset in Nevada, but none of that mattered anymore. Trump won by an impressive 306 electoral votes to 232. Pennsylvania was a big loss for Clinton, but one she was only picked to win by 1.9%. Trump won by 0.7%, resulting in a 2.6% spread error. Michigan was a bigger loss for Clinton. She blew a 3.4% lead in the polls, handing the state to Trump by 0.3%, a 3.7% spread error. But the 3 biggest spread errors of the night were Iowa, where Trump was picked to win by 3 and he crushed it, winning by 9.5%, a 6.5% error. Wisconsin, picking Hillary to win by 6.5% and seeing her lose to Trump by 0.7%, a large 7.2% spread error. And finally, the biggest error award went to tiny Maine District number 2. Trump was picked to win by 0.5 and ran away with a 10.4% victory, almost a 10% spread error in the polls. Seeing all these spread errors go Trump's way clearly shows that many state polls underpredicted his vote. Despite these state-level polling errors, our 2016 prediction map was showing a close race, not a Clinton landslide by any means. So where did all this Hillary optimism come from? And why were the betting odds picking Hillary as the favorite by 88%? It might have had something to do with this.
Going into this night, where do we stand?
This is where we stood coming into the night, 268 to 204, so clearly an advantage for Secretary Clinton.
Wait, what? How did they come up with these numbers? We had to factor in nearly all battleground states with less than 3% polling error to give Hillary 268. And in that scenario, Donald Trump would have had 230, not 204.
All along, the Trump campaign has been saying that Florida's a must-win for them.
Absolutely.
And I mean,
They can't win without it.
No, actually, Donald could have lost Florida and still won with 277. Any other theories?
It was a stunning reversal of the Obama years, a result which hardly anyone predicted.
That may be true, but this really should not have been a surprise. Again, the polling averages showed Clinton with a razor-thin majority. And that was only after factoring in multiple states where she was leading by less than 1% in the polls. Looking back at 2016, did the state polls make mistakes? Yes, big ones, and mostly in the same direction. But as a sum total, they still indicated a very close race. I would distribute a healthy slice of 2016 blame towards the media's filter of the poll data, and to all the voters who bought into the media's narrative.
Sometimes you hear what you want to hear.
And now, things get real. Let's build a 2020 election map with what the current polls are telling us. Here are the current battlegrounds according to the polls. If we pull up 2016 and we play Find the Difference between these two pictures, the biggest standout is Texas, a state Mitt Romney won by 15.8% in 2012. It's now a battleground for Trump. The rest of the map is similar with the Rust Belt states and Florida up for grabs. Starting again with states polling 5% or above in one direction, Biden takes Michigan and Wisconsin, both by about 6.5%. No states for Trump just yet. As we move down to the 5 to 3% range, we also award Biden Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. Again, none for Trump. Biden has already reached the 270 threshold at this point. Now in the 3 to 1% range, Trump gains Texas by 2.3%, and Biden takes Florida with 1.2% and Iowa with 1%. And finally, for states in the sub 1% range, North Carolina and Georgia go to Biden. Ohio and Arizona remain a virtual tie. The polls are telling a very different story this year than in 2016. If the polls have fixed their 2016 errors, Biden is well on his way to victory and Trump is running out of options. So what has to happen for Trump to win? He'll need to take the states where he is tied. He'll also need to lean Georgia, North Carolina, Iowa, and Florida back his way. From there, he'll need some 2016 magic to turn a Rust Belt state red. If it's Pennsylvania or Michigan, he's done it again. But if it's Wisconsin or Minnesota, the election will come down to our rogue districts, Omaha, Nebraska, and Maine's 2nd District, roughly 300,000 voters each. Again, this is not a fringe scenario. This could very well happen. Biden is polling suspiciously close to Hillary's 2016 numbers in Wisconsin. If it does come down to these two districts, Biden appears to have an edge in both. Maybe Trump should have put more planning into that Omaha rally after all. Assuming the polls don't change much as of October 29th, and assuming they're accurate, I expect Biden to win by around 300 electoral votes, which would be the reverse of the 2016 outcome. Big questions remain, like have pollsters fixed their Trump estimates in the Rust Belt? Is the fact that there are less undecided voters going to give the polls an accuracy edge? Are the Trump supporters even more fed up with polls this year and refusing to participate in them? And perhaps a more existential but related question, if we don't live in one of these battleground states, does our vote really matter? We'll address that question in next week's video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to see more.